The sound you are hearing is the soundtrack to Heartbeat City, Gary Butterfield's upcoming podcast on the Duckfeed Network. We're going to make it happen. Patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Gary and his friends talking about love, life, sex, relationships, and everything in between over some dope-ass synthwave music. Again, check it out. Make it happen. Patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
Staring at skeleton makes me nervous. Staring at skeleton makes me nervous. Staring at skeleton makes me nervous. Staring at skeleton, what makes me nervous about? Staring at skeleton, what makes me nervous about? Staring at skeleton, what I'm talking about? Sweating like a pig here. Staring at skeleton, what I'm sweating like a pig here. Sweating like a pig here. Staring at skeleton, what I'm sweating like a pig here. I'm staring at skeleton, sweating like a pig here. I'm talking about sweating like a pig here. Pig here. Skeleton, pig here. Pig here. Pig here.
Well, it makes me bored.
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, the podcast where we cover every single episode of the X-Men animated series and a bunch of X-Men related media in between. How are you today, Gary? What's life like for old Mr. Butterfield?
Oh, things are well.
You doing like a demented Professor X there? What are you doing?
Logan, we have to make them learn.
You're gonna need a few more fucks in there if you're gonna do a full Logan, Professor X.
That's my psychic killing everyone. I'm good. It was my girlfriend's birthday yesterday.
Nice. Happy birthday.
Shout out to you.
Girl I've never met and don't know.
I'll send that out. But she had a garage sale during the day and then a party at night. And I went over there and helped her with it. So I was kind of just like gone all day. Mm-hmm. And then just got back home a little while ago. And I'm tired from a day of doing, partying and then working. And both. But it was very fun. And now I'm home. And I got a long day of recording ahead of me. And then I'm going to do fuck all. And then I'm going to, tomorrow, though, start back in on packing because I'm moving.
Yeah. Getting to the new place.
This is germane to the show. I decided to get rid of like just about all my comics. I had to do it.
I can see that.
I'm moving into a small place, and I went on vacation recently, and I bought a tablet, and I went ahead and sprung for a Marvel Unlimited membership because it read pretty well. And then I was just like, I have so much of this just digitally, and at the yearly price, it's like $5 a month. Is it really worth me like hauling like literally 6 huge boxes of these trades? And so
Marvel Unlimited isn't perfect. It's missing some pretty wide swaths of swaths, whatever.
Swaths, either way it works. I think it's pronounced swathes.
Swaths, right?
Yeah. Well, that could also be like a fabric swath. So I think maybe it's both.
True. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's really get into this. Let's go to vocabulary.com.
Actually, don't know.
It's missing some stuff, but it's totally worth it for the price. And Autumn is at the point where she's buying books on the Kindle that we already have in hardback, and we're just like donating the hardbacks to Goodwill because unless it's an important book, like why do you have this thing that made out of paper that collects dust in your house that you will probably never read? I'm
just turning into like digital boy. Like I kept a couple things. I kept some of my comics, but I got rid of most of it, and I'm just like I feel bad about it. I'm just going to switch to digital because I want to be able to move and I want to be able to have space and all these things. I don't know how long I'll be able to stay at this new place. It'll be like a year at least, but I don't know if I have to move again in a year. And it's like just doing that again. But the frustrating thing with these digital services is the way that they are splintering, so it's like I looked at Comixology and it was missing a bunch of Marvel stuff I wanted to read. So I got the Marvel one, but there's a bunch of like non-Marvel stuff I'd like to read. So do I subscribe to multiple comic streaming services? Like that kind of feels bad. So I don't know exactly what to do about it, but
It's the same
For
thing
now,
with
I've been
everything.
catching up.
Like I'm subscribed to Hulu and Netflix at this point.
Yeah,
because we wanted to
and
watch
then eventually
The
you're gonna get a
Handmaid's Tale.
Sisu,
So.
and you're gonna get a CISO and a Shutter, and like all the just gonna splinter into all these different things, and it's a bummer.
I did my 30 days in CISO. CISO probably had their best month ever when that My Brother and Me podcast TV show came out because
did your 30 days. I put in my time, CISO. Get off my dick. I don't want to. There's some a comedian I like posted. He's like, I know more people have seen a UFO than have subscribed to CISO. And I'm just like, that's probably about right. Like, because it's all good stuff I want, but it's like, I can't subscribe to CISO. It then becomes a weird obligation where it's like, well, if I don't watch my CISO, then
you're wasting money. It's like a GameFly subscription, right? Like I've had I've had 2 GameFly games sitting on my counter for at least a month now that I should probably be turning around, but I barely play video games anymore. So
yeah, that's the worst. And also you got caught in some perpetual games, so we don't have to talk about that now. That's for a different show, but we'll
no. Let's get into it. You want me to tell you about my Overwatch ships? I'm into that.
Oh, please. Yes.
Do you think somebody has legitimately asked that question and heard yes back in response? Like even people that are into it are probably like, no, I don't actually. I don't really care. I don't care.
There are probably podcasts that have whole segments on that. Like where it's just like, let's get into the shipping news. No, not the movie. The Overwatch shipping news, and just spend the whole time just like, what if this lady was a lesbian and the other one was a lesbian and then they ate each other out? Ba-ba! And then go forward with that. I don't actually know what shipping is, so I don't know if it has a lot of cunnilingus in it. I just assumed.
Well, I went to. I was looking for a new avatar for Twitter because I was doing a dumb Twitter thing this weekend, and went to the Overwatch fan art Tumblr, and I mean, I knew it in my head, but I had never experienced the sheer overwhelming amount of basically pornography, like just these characters in the game just drawn with enormous breasts and like tiny bikinis. It's just insanity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could have told that.
I'll send you some links later.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I can Google it and I can imagine it, and I can also like look at pictures of like actual naked ladies like literally whenever I want. Man, it's just I know I like this. This makes it sound like I'm giving you shit, and I believe that you are getting turned on by this, and I know you're not. Mm-hmm. So I apologize for that. And honestly, if you're listening to this and this stuff makes you horny, like I don't care. It's just weird to me. But I don't care. It's fine.
Yeah, beat off to what you want, but like you Overwatch masturbators and you like tentacle porn masturbators. I'm not going to get it. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
Like do whatever you want to in the privacy of your own home. I don't care. I just don't understand it. Like
it's also just like and we talked about this a bunch. This is becoming the side topic of this specific podcast. But just
let's talk about sex, baby.
Yeah, let's say it's the Sex Man, Sex Man animated series. But where it's just like I'm just playing a game. It's like lots of like cool shooting and stuff's happening in it, and it's like an action game where people want to kill each other a bunch, and then someone just be like, no, there's this whole layer of relationships and dynamics that's on top of this that they don't talk about, but I'm telling you it's there. Like I just don't understand. I understand why that would make it more fun. Like if that were text as opposed to subtext, like I think that would make it a cooler game because the actual base game doesn't appeal to me that much. Mm-hmm. I don't understand the kind of like magical thinking that like believes that's there and intertwines the two things.
So not to like actually you, but
no, please actually because I don't understand it. So that's what I'm saying. I want to be
as you're like grouping up at the beginning of a match. Like you have like about a minute before the match actually starts, where you're just kind of grouped up with all your people. You're running around, everybody's emoting at one another, and specific characters have like different dialogue with them. So like if you get, and I don't know any of this stuff because I don't watch like Overwatch lore videos. I give a shit for any of that. But if one character has like a history with another one, like the first one will say something like, "This better go better than it did last time." It's like, well, that was your fault. Like, so they build that kind of relationship dynamic in the game, like as you're playing, which I think is kind of neat.
Well, but, they're talking about Overwatch skirmishes, right? They weren't talking about like the last time we tried to finger each other in a bathroom. It didn't go so well, Bob.
But then also like some of the stuff like Tracer and I can't remember anybody's names in this. But they're like in the actual lore stuff, like they are outed as a couple, like they are.
Okay.
Yeah, so like some of that stuff is official, quote unquote, canon or what have you. But
which I like just because it makes Gamergate people mad.
Yeah, exactly. Like in any kind of representation, right? Like especially when it's official from a company like Blizzard that's huge and it's a AAA game and all that other stuff. Like that's all positive in my mind. And I feel bad because I know people are tired of talking about Overwatch, and here I am talking about Overwatch. But like once you got to get into it, like that's all you do. I'm just waiting for people to mute me on Twitter at this point because I can't stop fucking talking about it.
Yeah, people get really addicted to Overwatch. It's one of the reasons why I won't play it, because like I like Team Fortress 2, but I don't want to play a perpetual game, kind of no matter what. You know, like I just know that it will stop me from playing other games, and I want to finish things. You know, I want to finish experiences. I don't want to just have a thing I just go to for a little bit and that's just always there. You know,
yeah.
That's just never going to appeal to me.
Anyway, let's talk about the X-Men.
Yeah, the X-Men are also good. So the reason why we got into this, so I started just because a lot of people were telling me after we talked about the Grant Morrison X-Men to read the Jason Aaron Wolverine the X-Men, and I read the first arc, and it's good. It's like,
remind me, which
fun.
one is the first arc? Is that when they're opening the school and they've got like the inspectors or whatever walking around?
Yeah, and the Hellfire Club, like you know, a bunch of things happen though. I read up through Kitty getting pregnant. It's up to the Avengers versus X-Men crossover. So I read the first like 8 issues, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
And it is good. It's interesting that people make so many comparisons to the Grant Morrison X-Men because like it does have kids in it, but the Grant Morrison X-Men wasn't a comedy book, and this is like very much a comedy book. Like everybody's cracking jokes all the time. Like I'm kind of surprised by how light the tone is. You know,
I've never. Until you said that the last time we recorded, when we started talking about Wolverine and the X-Men, I'd never heard that it was like the follow-up to Grant Morrison stuff. So that was, unofficially.
I think the reason why I think that is because Jay and Miles said it on one episode. They said it was like the spiritual successor. And gotcha. I don't always trust those guys. Those folks take it anyway. You know, like I don't know. I would say like maybe half the time I agree with them about X-Men stuff. But that they had said that, and like I generally like I don't always agree with them about X-Men stuff, but I don't think they're people of like no taste, you know. So them saying it was part of the reason why I wanted to check it out. I was just surprised by I wonder if it's just been a while since they read the Grant Morrison stuff and remembered the kind of lighter stuff with the kids and not all of like the heavy weird shit that happens because I just reread that.
It's real easy to read like the first couple of arcs of Grant Morrison's too, and come out of it thinking that. And I know the JMLs haven't done this because they're the certified experts in the field. No pun intended, but it's easy to forget like the back half of his run just goes wild and crazy and super dark. So like it's hard to remember that if you've like haven't read that series in a long time. But Wolverine X-Men is it's super jokey and fun. Like it's just a really good comic. Like it's a superhero comic about superheroes doing some dumb superhero stuff, and I can really get behind that. Like it feels like there's no pretensions to it whatsoever to be something that it's not.
It's really fun, and the characters that are in it are good characters. Like a lot of them are just kind of sketches. Like there's not a whole lot to like Kid Guardian or whatever, or Kid.
He's just mad.
He's just mad. So it's like it's just enough to make him like a comedy beat in the background, you know. Mm-hmm. Like if there's any problem with it so far, and maybe it still has time to pull up, you know, it hasn't felt like there's any character development in it, like at all, you know, which is fine. Like it just feels like everyone's kind of that way. Like everyone's kind of like a joke, and it's a bunch of jokes that kind of get along together, and are funny and fun. You know, but I'm not saying I needed to get serious, but I would love to have like, you know, some character moments, and they're kind of swerving towards that a little bit with Iceman. So we'll see if that plays off. You know?
Unlike this episode, which has just a fucking sea of unlikable characters in it, Gary. these two episodes.
I don't want to bury the lead too much. I think these 2 episodes. So one, like this is unquestionably the coolest and funniest Savage Land stuff. Not coolest, the funniest Savage Land stuff we've done.
I don't think it's intentionally funny at all, though.
No, it's not. But this is so outlandish and crazy that, like, I think these are really fun episodes. I think this is really stupid in a way that, like, because, like, spoiler, like, this ends with Sauron as like a 70-foot tall monster fighting a gigantic rock god, and like those are the stakes.
It's just
like
ridiculous.
And we get there kind of naturally. Like it's very, very weird, and just everybody acts like an idiot, and it's kind of peak animated X-Men for me. The worst part of them, like peak bad X-Men. You know, like there's like actual good X-Men animated series where I'm like, man, this you know, the last episode was like, man, this sucks for Iceman. You know, what a bummer. And this is more just like, okay. You know,
it barely feels like an X-Men story, right? Like if it just so happens that the X-Men are around here, they don't actually like outside of like Storm, they don't really like do anything about this.
It's a big Storm story. Yeah. And I have to give it credit for like doing a Storm highlight story that isn't like dealing with, you know, Minardi, you know, and like the Shadow King. Like elements of her backstory I think suck. Like, this is dealing with her emotionally and using another thing kind of to deal with it. It's just the thing they chose to interact with her emotionality, which is not like it's kind of like a part of her character, but it doesn't come out that often in the comic or in the TV show. The thing they chose to focus on it with is just ridiculous. And really I think is. Like legitimately pretty fun. As long as you like sit back and relax and pretend like it's a He-Man story or like it's a Savage Land spin-off story.
And it is, I don't think we've actually said that, but this is we're covering 2 episodes today: Savage Land, Savage Heart, Part 1 and Part 2. So this is another double episode. This is all about the Savage Land.
But kind of like it's not just the normal Savage Land. It's like this unseen before rock god, this weird bird sorceress. Like it's all this Savage Land stuff. Yeah, Garrock and Zaladane. It's all this stuff that we didn't know about before. So it's like I'm kind of into it. I don't know. Like this kind of works for me weirdly, mostly just because of the weird stuff it makes the X-Men do. Like the X-Men that are in it all act like the fool.
And we have another run-in with the T-Rex, so that's always a good time. We talked about that in the last episode. Like really the X-Men are just so ineffectual against T-Rexes.
It's their weakness. The T-Rex factor. Let's get into it. Mm-hmm. So the first episode we're talking about is episode 19, Savage Land, Savage Heart, Part 1. Sauron, a shape-shifting mutant, kidnaps Storm and brings her to the Savage Land in order to feed from her mutant energy. Separated from the rest of the X-Men, Storm is encouraged by Sauron to free her inner tempest of energy, awakening Garrock. And
just to avoid the correction future, this was not episode 19. This is I just put that in there because that's the episode of the podcast. So yeah, I don't know. We're in season 3 where episode numbers
season 3 is all goofy. This point. Yeah. So and that's why we stopped putting the dates on, because like the dates are also meaningless. Like nothing matters.
Mm-hmm. Everything's meaningless. Nothing matters. Let's talk about the X-Men.
So you could be forgiven for like this episode thinking it's going to suck because of how it starts off, which is so stupid.
Oh, wow.
It feels like it's literally like 5 minutes of just like throwing spears at pterodactyls.
It's so dumb. Like, and so this is like a fight scene where the Savage Land natives, which they haven't called these people by a different name or anything. Like, I don't know what to call them.
Khazar's people.
Yeah,
Khazar-Afarians.
They're Khazarites or whatever. Yeah. Garrock followers, because they all worship Garrock, are fighting Sauron and his team of like pterodactyls that are just flying around on his orders with like people on their back. It's so like they got catapults.
Has this cartoon done anything to explain or present Sauron as like a heavy? Like why Sauron is anything other than just like a mind control pterodactyl, and why that's like he can subjugate this entire people? Like it's because as far as we can tell, he can't have like a bunch of people under his control at once. Mm-mm. Like it seems like he can just do. He's one and done. He's a monogamous mind controller. And it's just real weird that he is such a threat to where like he's had these people oppressed as like lock them up as his slaves and stuff. And this is their revolt, and this goes on forever. Just like going back and forth between the catapults and stuff. This action scene. Sauron at this point is getting weak, and the reason he's getting weak, we find out later, is he has to feed on mutant powers to stay Sauron.
So how has he been Sauron for so long in the Savage Land? Like there's not been mutants in the Savage Land.
Why would you live there?
Why would you live there?
There's so many other places you live. So this scene though, where this happens, he's like kind of like stumbles around way, and he's kind of drunk looking, and Khazar corners him, hits him with a spear, knocks him down. Before this happens, Sauron says like, Khazar, I wouldn't do that if I were you. It's Sauron's voice and comes out of Khazar's mouth. There's an animation area here that's incredible. Like Khazar just starts speaking his voice, like he's throwing his voice, like he's ventriloquist dummy. And then like you only have a second to think about how weird that is, because then Zaladane shows up. And
who the fuck is Zaladane? Can you explain Zaladane?
Fucking lipstick. Like you're not Grace Jones. What are you doing with this stuff?
Autumn's first reaction, because she was watching this episode with me, she looked up and said, "Is that a bird person from Rick and Morty?"
Dresses just like one of the bird people from Rick and Morty. Like, it's like if you wanted to dress like if somebody described the Shi'ar to you, and you had to make a Halloween costume for a Shi'ar, but like you'd never seen them. Mm-hmm, this is what you would dress as.
It's terrible. And she basically, like, her whole purpose in this episode is just to do what, like, Garak wants, but she doesn't actually do a whole lot besides hypnotize Sauron. Like, that's kind of it.
She, like, convinces him something, but her power is to fucking reveal secret doors and staircases and shit. She's a staff that detects secret passages, like a magic item in first edition D&D. Like... It's just, and like, she's...
What's your magic power? I press X on doors until I find a illusory wall.
She can wall hump from Wolfenstein 3D, and that's like her superpower. It happens multiple times in this episode. She like zaps the floor, and it just makes a perfectly formed staircase. They walk down it.
Was the staircase there before, and it was hidden? Is that what's happening?
Or did she sculpt it? Like, I have no idea, because like Garrett kind of has earth power, so like... Maybe she created it. Like later, she reveals just an open door to the outside. While this is happening, though, the amazing thing is Sauron is losing his power, so he's slowly turning back into his human form. And there's all these shots of him in his between phase, where his like head is just kind of misshapen. He's just got this like weird green. He looks like the alien that is Dr. Wily at the end of Mega Man 2. Like his head is just kind of this weird egg shaped thing, and it's so goofy looking, and you can't tell what's an animation error and what is like.
But he's got that weird half-formed head, right? Like it's kind of elongated, but it's not full Sauron yet. So it's just like a really
like Zippy the Pinhead.
It looks like someone did a terrible Monster in the Dark Souls character creator. Like it just has that like long kind of head thing happening that nothing fits around correctly. It's hideous.
It's real weird. And then he turns into Carl Lycos, whose voice is like 7 octaves lower than Sauron's. Like he has a super villain. Their voices got reversed or something, or like Sauron's voice is all screechy like a pterodactyl, but Carl Lycos' voice is deeper than anyone in the show's ever has been. It's like deeper than Magneto's. It's like twice as deep as Magneto's voice.
He's all the way down here. I don't know what's going on. He's all the way down here.
It's just like I don't know if I can't do it. You'd have to like it's an Audacity filter, but like in his throat.
Yeah. You got to go full Ving Rhames on it, right? Like you just have to go. Like the dude has a voice.
Ving Rhames. I enjoy the work of Ving Rhames. I love him in Pulp Fiction.
This is we get into something that's like my favorite part of the episode, I think, which is when they walk outside and Zaladane says, "Oh, Magneto left his jet here from a while back. Like you guys might remember that or whatever." And so he gets in it, and she's like, "You need to go to like the city or something." I don't even remember how she sells this on him. She just puts like this Garak medallion around his neck and says like, "Go from here, like go on this quest." He pulls up the UI for this thing, and he just has like an autopilot button for New York, L.A., Asteroid M, or Savage Land. Like it's just like you just click a button and you can go to Asteroid M.
He's got a very, very few number of places that he likes to go.
I just love that there's a button for Asteroid M. It's just so fucking great.
It's so good. Like there's space just in general. And then I also like that he when she reveals the ship, you think it's going to be like this huge thing, but it's just one of his little like scoot cruisers. You know, like it's just you know the ship. So her plan is X-Men villains and X-Men and everyone in the show have really silly plans. Her plan relies on a lot of coincidences here, right? Like if you actually think about what she's doing, because she's fake. She gives him a medallion that ultimately will let her control him, but at first it doesn't happen. She's just sending him to New York, which is like, if you're feeding on mutants, this is just like a buffet.
Yeah, seriously. You know? Have you seen the subways down there? Mm-hmm.
So the idea is like, so that will happen. She's banking on him bringing back a super powerful mutant from this, right? Like, is there anything that like, because he's going to kidnap Storm. Does she know that he's going to run into Storm?
So
like, New York's big.
She doesn't, but Garak in the second episode actually spills his whole plan and says like he specifically led Carl Lycos as Carl Lycos to Storm so that he would hypnotize Storm and bring back, because that's where he gets all of his power from, or is the elements more or less. So it was his plan, and I like how Garak is influencing somebody 1,000 miles away. Why he isn't doing that all the time, but I guess he has this medallion. I guess that was her purpose.
Yeah. It's just weird that the medallion didn't like glow or his eyes didn't glow. Like it's not a cartoon that deals with subtlety. Like if you're mind controlling somebody in the show, like it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, there's going to be like some sort of effect coming out of your eyes if you're mind controlling somebody. And this is like we get we move to New York first, and we get Rogue and Storm, who are riding around. And at first I thought, like, okay, this makes sense. Like, we've actually seen the stables in X-Men before. We talked about that, I think, in the first X-Men movie. But so I thought, okay, well, they're on the property. They're at the school riding around. No. They're in Central Park. Like,
yes.
They're riding horses.
They just cleared the way. And Rogue in this section is particularly like the grit that she adds to her voice. The actress is just like at full grit. Like, I'm just imagining like a bunch of people having sexual awakenings to this.
Yeah! 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 Whoa! I'll take riding over flying any day.
She's like, I don't know. Like, she
gets crazy.
Like, she's just like, there's that way, like, I think about the band Heart when they have that like Crazy on You song, and I always think about that when I think about like just, somebody's just gonna fucking throw down, when it comes to sex, and she's constantly making those like those kind of noises during this.
She's
entire
also
time.
in like full rodeo gear, right? Like, she's got like a belt buckle, cowboy boots, which we've never seen her wear before.
And
like,
Storm is dressed like she's gonna hunt foxes in England.
Yeah, she's in full dressage outfits. Like, that's how Autumn rides. Like, Autumn dresses up like that every weekend to go ride her horse. Like, it's insane. I don't they're two totally different styles.
Yeah.
Like, why are you guys riding together?
They're having fun. They just need to make sure that everyone knew that Storm was Southern. If you forgot for some reason, or not Storm, Rogue, yeah.
But she does put on that extra twang, right? Like, she starts twanging all over the place, and it's hilarious.
Whenever she gets her like weekend jeans on, she's just like fucking twang it out. And so they're having a very sloppy foreshadowing conversation about Rogue being like, I'm wild and free, and Storm being like, I'm reserved. I'm too scared about going out of control with my powers. Which is kind of frustrating. Like, it comes up in the comics a little bit. It's frustrating in the show, which is a simplified version of the comics, because that is what the Phoenix is ostensibly about, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's like this woman empowerment, like, losing control, and then she eventually dresses up as a sexy dominatrix and stuff. Like, that's our X-Men metaphor for kind of like lady empowerment and kind of male fear of women being empowered. The Storm stuff just kind of comes out of nowhere, it feels like, in the cartoon to me.
Yeah, they have not discussed this at all. Like, the only kind of storm centric episode that we've had is when we went back to Africa with that kid who you named earlier, Minari, I think. And
Minari.
We didn't get any of that at all. Like, it was mostly that the Shadow King wanted to possess her to use her power, to use her full potential, but that was really it. So yeah, this just comes out of nowhere. Rogue's like, you got to let loose, honey. Like, it's just,
honey. And Storm's like, oh no, I can't do that. I'm too reserved. And it's like, okay, let's cut away from this, because, that's foreshadowing. That's what these two episodes are going to be about, is Storm learning not to get her groove back. Storm putting her groove back on the shelf. She's going to give her groove back.
How Stella returned her groove from the
library.
From the groove store.
They got the groove depository. Like, Stella returned her groove to the groove depository.
I have a receipt. Oh, I'm sorry. The receipt for your groove is over 30 days. I can't do anything.
Well, can I get credit? Okay. Like,
just
if you have the card, you got it on. Yeah, Storm credit. We can only exchange this for Storm credit. That sounds fine.
So we get to see this lovely exchange where apparently Beast has convinced Wolverine and Jubilee to go to the museum. It has to be because Beast was like, we need to educate this poor child. She's at a school and we have not taught her anything.
All she's learned how to do is answer the phone and fucking set broken legs. So
she knows that, and she knows how to get rid of Gambit's one night stands before Xavier wakes up in the morning, right? You gotta get out of here. Come on, get out of here, Shauna. You need to leave.
Yeah, so this museum thing is gold from front to back. Everything that happens between when they show them in the museum and Wolverine gets zapped is like my favorite thing that these guys have ever done. It's so really good. Like, oh man. So they're walking around looking at dinosaur skeletons and stuff. And, Beast is being a nerd and Wolverine's not having it, and Jubilee's bored, and of course, right? And like they're walking around and Wolverine is just like, Beast says like,
my friend, why the foreboding countenance? Staring at skeletons makes me nervous.
like, what?
What? Excuse me?
And then they're about to leave, and he's like, let's get a hot dog. Like, he says it in like the same tone, and then Jubilee is like, last one to get the hot dogs, a pterodactyl, like egg, or like something like real stupid. All the
Yeah,
and
a
then,
pterodactyl's
Beast is
egg,
like,
I think is what she says. Like something just totally dumb.
and Beast like looks at the camera and a real like, those are my kids.
So, whither now? How about the Guggenheim for the Magritte exhibit? How about a chili dog with the works?
Last one there's a fossilized canary.
As Shakespeare knew so well, how sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless child.
You know, like they grow up so fast.
He walks outside and he's like, "What about a trip to the Guggenheim for the such and such exhibit?" And they're like, "Nope, let's go get a dog from the street vendor."
You can do both. Like, what is like your plan for the day is to hang out with this street vendor who looks like fucking Nick Fury and just like eat hot dogs with Nick Fury all day rather than go to the art museum.
Why not both? Right?
Why not both?
Just take Nick Fury to the museum with you.
It's also, there's a thing in the background too that should be noted, that it's New York Comic Con is happening. So I don't know why, but they make pains of establishing that, which made me think it was going to come up later, and it doesn't. I was like, they're going to do a joke where Sauron is in a costume, and that guy's got good cosplay or something like that with Sauron, and they didn't do it.
There's a weird moment where, because eventually Sauron shows up and starts fucking up the nice X-Men day that they're having, the X-Men's day off, which always happens, but where he's like flying through the air, and it shows like a couple of cartoonists in a building working, right? And I was like, that's a weird. I mean, like it's fine, but like they don't really look like anybody that I could identify. And I tried looking it up to see if it was like a reference, and I didn't find anything. So
that's also not what happens at Comic Cons. Like I think that feels like it was like driving. He was flying by the Marvel offices. They're just kind of trying to show, like, you know, and it's just like, man, this is going to pay off at some point. Like, they're going to show these, like, at the end, they're going to show those guys who saw this, and they're going to be like, it's our new cartoon, Dinosaur Man, you know, or, I don't know, like, there's going to be some kind of, like, dumb kid joke that pays off for any of this background detail, but none of it actually does anything. It's really frustrating.
So, Carl Lycos, who has landed in New York and just left
It's Sauron, in case
Sauron.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Carl Lycos is Sauron's name. But Sauron has shown up in his human form and has been wandering around just like touching people and zapping them, but not turning into Sauron because they're not mutants. And then he senses a lot of energy from Wolverine, so he goes over there and touches them and then, you know, goes full pterodactyls out. Which, like, none of this really makes sense because, like, Carl the entire time is like, I don't want to turn into Sauron, but I must touch these people and drain their energy for some reason. Like, it doesn't make
He's like a junkie. Like, you know, the idea. He's, like, addicted to it. You know, and it's just like, at no point is anyone responsible with Carl Lycos. Like, this whole episode is about him, like, being given second and third and fourth chances to, like, not turn into Sauron, and he just can't not do it. You know, there's no, like, you know, it's not going to end well for, the cycle of addiction is real. Like, Carl Lycos is not going to end well. I just can't get over the fact that it's such an amazing coincidence that he just happens to be right where
Wolverine is. I know.
Yeah, like New York's a big city. Like, it's not, you know,
you could wander around for months and not see somebody, right? Like, it'd be so, especially because the X-Men don't live in New York City. Also, like,
they just happen to be visiting, and that's why
they just happen to go check out the Guggenheim and look what happens.
Yeah. So he turns into Sauron. Everybody freaks out, including the conspicuously one-eyed hot dog vendor. So he flies off. The X-Men they remember they have communicators, which doesn't always happen. I think Beast tells, like, Storm that, you know, there's trouble heading her way towards Central Park. So she zaps her costume on. And then tries
by the way, Beast's communicator is his belt buckle, which, so, like, he has to look down at his dick every time he wants to make a phone call.
Reaching down. He also puts on his science kit later, like his cool science backpack. Like,
oh, yes.
He got some good Beast going on.
If you're listening to this, go hit the Twitter, because I definitely made a gif of that in the second episode where he uses it to grab a syringe, which is something impossible if you didn't have a robotic arm.
That syringe doesn't have a needle or anything that looks like a point. It just he jams a Sharpie with the cap on and Storm's arm. It's so Storm, you know, attempts to use the Arctic wind and
tells everybody about it. If you guys love Storm calling out her attacks like she's in an anime, like, you're gonna love this episode because she summons
Jubilee
Arctic winds. Jubilee does it a couple of times. Yeah, this is it's all over the place.
So the idea is she summons the Arctic wind and nobody cares because they can be in the cold. Rogue shows up and Sauron hypnotizes Rogue into thinking the X-Men are really poorly designed like monsters.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle villains is what they look like to me.
like a kid, like if you needed to do a background of showing some kids at Halloween, you'd show them dressed up this way. Like it's super goofy, and
yeah,
of course,
these are non-branded costumes that you would find at the Halloween store, like on October 30th at 8 p.m. Right?
Why wouldn't he make them look like X-Men villains?
I don't know.
The Savage Land mutates, like the Savage Land mutates, dog. Like, it's just like it's too cheap to draw them. Like they're really shitty. Okay.
Make him look like Cody. She's probably scared of that dude still, right?
Yeah, totally. So now that, God, how does Storm pass out?
She goes up to try to and basically like uses the winds to knock Rogue loose, I think, and that's when Sauron gets a hold of her, hypnotizes her, and puts her to sleep, or whatever, and then just leaves. Meanwhile, Beast
apparently flies back to the Savage Land
because
he arrived in the subway.
he landed the plane in the subway.
He went to the park and ride, parked his jet, took the subway into New York.
I can only assume down here, like if in the bays or whatever, where like they have these giant buildings where they can put ships in like 2 or 3 stories tall. Like I can only assume it's one of those, right? Like he just parked it and they just lifted it up into a thing and slotted it in.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And then he went and he did a couple different transfers, and then bought a Metro card, and made his way there. So he's flying Storm down to the subway to take the subway back to his ship.
Beast has grabbed Rogue out of midair and then dumps her directly into the lake to try to wake her up, and then makes like some horrible fucking like in the proverbial like whatever bullshit that he said.
Sincerest apologies, Rogue, but to employ a time-honored cliche, you'll thank me for this.
You'll thank me for this later.
Yeah. Ooh, wow, that's bad.
So to this dinosaur that hypnotizes people, that subjugated an entire people. The way you cure the hypnosis is getting wet.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It never rains in the Savage Land.
Like,
never rains in the Savage Land.
Khazar can't just push his buddies into a lake and just like outnumber Sauron like 10,000 to 1. Like, I can't believe, why does this snap her out of it? Like, it's so ridiculous.
I mean, if you really want to get into it, like, there's an argument to be made for like the shock, right, of being dumped into water would like kind of bring you back from whatever. But like, seriously, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. None of Sauron makes a whole lot of sense.
I'm not saying the water isn't it's not a problem that the water unhypnotizes you. It's a problem that like that's not used for the rest of this episode when people get hypnotized. Nope. It wasn't used in previous situations. Like, we know the cure. Like, we know the cure.
Yeah, they should have brought Super Soakers down to the Savage Land to rescue
or Super Soaker Man.
Hey, Iceman, can you just drop it 20 degrees? Just do or raise it 20 degrees and just do water?
Cyclops going to be there? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
No, because we find out he's in Muir Island. They're looking at the Jean Grey egg thing.
Yeah, we mentioned that last episode. I incorrectly said that Wolverine makes an offhand comment, and I was remembering this episode because I watched this episode with the last 2 that we covered. So that was on me. But yeah, that's. I'm guessing that's a victim of all of our out of order stuff that we have no idea. Like they haven't really talked about Jean in what feels like 8 months, even though she's sensibly dead.
And she was a major part of the team, but everyone else is going off to do side adventures, which is fine. They're flying to the Savage Land. Yep. There's this whole thing where they look out. Jubilee looks out the window and is like, "Who's the big pimple face?" or something like that to this gigantic statue of Garak, which like I don't know. I feel like that's how I describe this big rock face statue.
Yeah, it's just a rock face. Like it looks like a statue from Easter Island, right? Like that's exactly what it looks like. And like I don't see any pimples on it. Jubilee, what you trying to say? You little,
Jubilee calls it pimple face, and then Beast apparently is reading a book about it. Because I was trying to find the title of it, but because like Wolverine's like, that's Garak, Khazar told us about it last time, and then Beast like puts down his book like he just read this and it's like, the inhabitants worship him like a god, and it's just like, oh okay, you just decided to study up on Garak as if you know the villain already. It's very, very strange. Or he just reads on planes, which like, I guess, lucky him, because I can't do that.
But we've seen that Jubilee can't fly the plane, and I have to assume that Wolverine hasn't bothered to learn how to fly the plane. So, I mean, was he reading and flying the plane to the Savage Land?
No, Wolverine's flying it. Wolverine is steering the plane.
Oh, is he? For some reason, I was thinking, I don't remember that. No. Maybe because I wasn't paying 100% attention to this.
Beast is sitting way in the back. So, Zaladane kind of lays out the plot for us.
She tells Sauron that Storm has basically infinite mutant life energy, so that if he hypnotizes her and makes her lose control, he can basically be Sauron forever. He'll never turn back into Karlykos, which Sauron is all about. So he does it. He hypnotizes her, and she goes full like. I put in the notes Dark Storm because I mean your note about Dark Phoenix earlier is exactly the same thing. Like she doesn't get into the BDSM outfit, but we just did this story,
and we're going to do it again here in a couple weeks.
Yep.
So she and Darkstorm is just like crazy storm who likes to actually use weather powers that'd be effective. Like any storm that uses lightning. So if it's not fog and Arctic winds, like that's Darkstorm.
Although, she does still use fog. So don't.
Fog fans, you will like this episode. You're going to get a cameo.
Do you ship Storm and Fog? Yeah. I'd like to call it Stog.
Yeah. If you're looking at the Storm Fog tag on IMDb, you'll find it here as well. So she's just kind of gunning off in the sky, shooting lightning and zapping and stuff as the X-Men arrive. And run across a T-Rex, like a T-Rex transition, so they can be introduced to Khazar.
Yep.
And they fight the T-Rex. It knocks Jubilee into a mud puddle, which is going to be used for comedy beats later. Eventually, like Khazar gets on top of it and rides it away.
Yep, because that's what you do to T-Rexes. That's all you have to do is get on top of it.
Yep, they're all trained.
You just get on top of it and say, "Here, boy."
Just you press them with your knees, and it goes in the direction you press. Yeah. So Khazar kind of explains what's happening as Jubilee gets new clothing and dresses up as like a real shitty jungle stereotype.
Yeah, like this is full on like Fred Flintstone orange and black spots, right?
She does. Yeah, she dresses up like Fred Flintstone. Yeah, it's so weird.
It's super because not even the other people are wearing that kind of tiger print. Like, where did she get this?
Nobody who lives here is like. Was that because we haven't seen Zabu? We haven't seen his tiger. Like, is there like a dark side story that happened? Like. In the background, like because for some reason, Zabu's not here. They didn't want to animate him.
Well, no, he's actually he shows up right here.
You're right. Yeah.
Because he tackles Wolverine, and Wolverine gets him in a headlock, and
they cuddle.
I took the time to like make a little looping GIF of this, and I put it in the Slack and said I found a picture of Gary and Roars because I thought it was really cute. And then some people, I think it was Sam Bear, pointed out that when you can see it, like as Wolverine's like got him in the headlock, his whole like lower jaw moves back and forth, like he's like dislocating it and putting it back in place. It's really disturbing.
He's grinding down. He's doing orthodontics on the I forgot Kabu showed up. But yeah,
that's it. Like, and he doesn't have
he
spots,
cuddles with Wolverine. He doesn't fight.
No.
Any of the threats here, and Jubilee becomes Jubilee of the Jungle, which is her little name for this outfit and the like. And while this is happening, Khazar tells us what's been happening in the Savage Land since we left it.
In case you wanted to know, which I didn't. So. He says that Sauron took all of his people as slaves to build Mr. Sinister's tower, but this rock named Garrock, who has kind of been the god of this place for a long time, convinced his people to overthrow it. So now all of his people are 100% into Garrock, like they're drinking the Garrock juice.
It's kind of like cool the way it happens. It's super Lovecraftian because this statue just appears in their village overnight, and then they all start worshiping it. It's part of the text that like it wasn't there one night and they wake up and there's a statue in the middle of their village of this big creepy head. But
yeah, it's really. We're going to get into Garrock here in a bit in the second episode where we get his origin story, but like. It's kind of cool at this point. Like, I mean, he's just like this weird god trying to like make these weird moves. I'm kind of into Garrock right now, even though it's ridiculous. I'm kind of into it. Yeah,
Garrock's not so bad. Garrock is way better as far as, again, judging on the Savage Land curve. I think this is the best Savage Land episodes.
So, of course, we can't have a moment of respite. So, Sauron's like people on the back of other pterodactyls to show up, and there's a giant fight. People keep getting knocked off, and like Sauron's carrying Rogue at one point. She gets knocked off, so Beast has to jump up and save her. Like Beast does this jumping up and grabbing people out of midair like 18 times, I think, in the space of a minute and a half. But Sauron, who is losing his mutant power, and he's got the weird misshapen head again, is being chased by Jubilee of all people, who like chases him down and shoots him down, and like he crash lands in the fucking jungle somewhere.
Is this where Jubilee's riding a pterodactyl?
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact.
Jubilee, like, with his outfit comes strange powers, and is able to get on this pterodactyl and chase down Sauron. And just knows how to ride it and stuff. Takes down Sauron. So in response to this, Zaladin lets Dark Storm loose.
Yay!
And she starts going crazy, shooting weather everywhere.
And everywhere.
Yeah.
This is attacking everything and everywhere. The X-Men kind of run over to where Jubilee knocks Sauron out of the sky and find Carl Lycos, who Kesar knows apparently, and is like, "Oh, this is my friend Carl." What?
Yeah, he's a good man, because Wolverine's about to straight murder him.
Yeah,
Wolverine comes up with his claws to cut off his head, and he's just like, "Don't do, whoa, you're an X-Man. Remember you're a superhero. Stop it."
This isn't X-Force. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's not part of the Blade Squad. When X-Force came out, it was very funny. I was reading comics at the time, and I was joking with my friend because it was right when they did this very, very long storyline in X-Men called The Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire. Mm-hmm. And my friend Ryan would be like, "What X-Men is that?" And I'd be like, "Oh, it's Space X-Men." And then when I read the beginning of X-Force, I stopped reading it because it was too dark and edgy for me. But he was just like, "What X-Men is that?" I'm like, "Oh, it's like Blade X-Men." And there's this time when all the X-Men were just kind of, they're X-Men in space. They're X-Men that had knives as part of their powers. They're X-Men. They were all subdivided into these very, very specific little things. So I can't think about the X-Force without thinking of just the Blade Squad or the Blade Men, because it was him, it was somebody else with a knife, somebody with claws, somebody with two knives, and somebody else with claws. that was and then Archangel who could shoot knives, and that was X-Force. It was ridiculous.
Or as I like to call them, portable knives.
Oh yeah. So then that really is kind of how it ends, just kind of there. There's not really I think it shows Garrick's eyes glowing or something to remind you that he's there. And then we get another to be continued thing similar to the Phoenix one, except this one is lightning.
Yeah. And doesn't look as bad as the Phoenix thing, which looks fucking horrible.
Yeah. The Phoenix one's real cheap. This at least looks, it's a recognized
It doesn't
font.
look like an effect from a public access radio show or something, or from a public access TV show in the 80s.
Yeah.
These are the tales of the woods.
We haven't done Rogue either. We don't do a Rogue or Beast.
Neither one of them are really. I guess let's do Beast, because I feel like Rogue will have some shining moments here. So
yeah, Rogue will get and we've already done Beast's Spotlight episode, and for some reason during that episode we didn't talk about Beast. So
it's because it's Beast. Even now that I'm saying that, I'm kind of kicking myself and thinking, let's just go with Rogue.
Yeah, no, let's give Beast his due, because it's he's awful on the show. But
yes.
the longer it goes on, the more I'm able to appreciate how awful he is. I think the turning point was him wanting to fuck that computer. So now it's just kind of I don't know if it makes me have sympathy for him, but now he's a source of fun more than frustration now.
I like how somebody is obviously taking some really care with the character development of Beast throughout this animated series. This new edition where he has backpacks full of sciencey things and he wears goggles all of the time. I kind of dig this whole sci-fi robotics thing that he's walking around, because it's just so fucking goofy, especially paired with his falling in love with the AI and all of his way over flowery speech. It's consistently done. It's consistently over the top, and I hate it. I hate it so much that I'm almost looping all the way back around to love it. It's one of those things,
I think that they didn't have enough things for him to do, because I think in a fight scene in this cartoon, there's nothing he can do that Wolverine can't do. In a fight scene, Wolverine can jump on people like a Beast and claw them a bunch, and that's what Beast would do. But I don't know, and he's super strong, but he's not as super strong as Rogue. There's really he doesn't really have a good purpose on the team other than team scientist.
Yeah, other than the guy that did the research, right? He just happens to know all about Garrick. That's his role. He reads the paper. He reads the file on the.
He reads the lore notes. He's the one who reads the codexes in fucking Dragon Age. He's the Team Cole. Yeah, I didn't mean that to be mean to Cole. I just know he likes those codexes, so I wanted to make it a super text thing rather than so he didn't think it was a subtext thing.
Yeah, I got
if
you.
he listens to this, it is Cole is no Beast. And reading the comics, reading both the Grant Morrison X-Men, reading that new X-Men, has reminded me that in the comics I don't hate Beast.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just the cartoon that makes them awful. It's a lot like Storm in that respect, because the comics, like, Beast is okay. You know, he's not great, but it's like he's fine.
I feel like the speech patterns aren't, for some reason, when I read them, they come off as way better than the cartoon does. And I'm not blaming that on the voice actor. I think the voice actor is reasonably okay at delivering all of this stuff. There's something about just reading this stuff and not hearing it out loud that I think works better for the comics.
Yeah. You add your own voice to it, and they just make him. He has more screen time and he has more lines, so they don't have to be like in the cartoon. It's like in a Beast episode, he's going to have maybe 4 lines, and they need to make sure he sounds like Beast. So they make him do these quotes, and they really go overboard with it. So I think as far as like characters who got adapted to the cartoon, like Wolverine's like a 1-to-1 adaptation, right? Like we talked about how good this version of Wolverine is, but Beast suffers a lot from it because he doesn't, you know, he's a fine team player in a book, but he needs more lines. You know, he can't just be like, I get to say one battle quip, and that battle quip has to be like quoting Longfellow or something like that.
Yeah, he's I think he'd be better served as the way that Forge is shown in this cartoon, right? Where we see Forge like in the background of a team doing some sciencey shit, and that's really all we know about him. But they obviously wanted to put Beast in the field because, you know, he's on the team. So without that kind of separation, which I think it really is what makes like Grant Morrison's Beast really, really work, right? Like he's almost insulated from the team in a weird way. I think that the cartoon not having that, making sure that he's there, and then what are we going to have him do? I don't know. He's going to flip around and catch somebody or something. Let's knock somebody off of a dinosaur because it's the fucking Savage Land.
And he can be the person who can catch it, even though a lot of people can do it. He just happens to be there. You know, he's in the. I mean, the big difference with that Grant Morrison run too is that like there isn't really a field team. Like they're responding to things that happen. It's not like
let's go.
Yeah. You know, so it doesn't. He makes more sense in that context where like, in a reactive role, you know, something's happening to the X-Men and he deals with it. It makes me wonder, I can't remember if the cartoon does a Legacy Virus episode. But that would be really interesting if they do, because like that would be Beast's time to shine, given that like that's, you know, it's him solving a disease. And I'd be really curious as what they do with that, which is explicitly like an AIDS metaphor. You know, like that's, you know, very, very much like a thing of like, you know, an extension of the X-Men as a metaphor for homosexuality, you know, and being gay, having like, you know, there's a disease that just people who are mutants get, and it's fatal. We can't cure it, you know, and stuff. Like when that came out, that was very much. So I wonder if they do something like that. That'll be really interesting if they do.
Yeah, I'm kind of skimming through our episode synopsis, and I don't see anything like that. So I'd be kind of curious if that gets sprung up somehow, because I'm reading basically the first sentence of all this stuff, and I don't really see anything.
Yeah. I could see them avoiding it too, just because it's heavy.
Yeah,
you know, because as is like the episodes that really try to take advantage of Beast have not done a real good job of it. Like his highlight episodes have been pretty intolerable because it's cartoon Beast, but even those have been better. Like the episode where he falls in love with the computer, the episode where he falls in love with the blind girl, those have been better than just his worst one-liners in other people's episodes, where like you condense him down and he's just like the shittiest fucking cold brew. Like you do not want concentrated Beast. You want to have a Beast spread out over, you know.
You want a Beast spread? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, gotta get
spread of Beast.
Spread that Beast. Yeah.
We've talked a lot about like the weird garbage comic book thing where they put everybody in like their bathing suits or whatever. And, man, like anytime Beast is like wearing clothes, I call it out a lot. But anytime he's wearing like a thong, basically like a mankini or whatever you want to call it, like it's just ridiculous.
It's very weird because it's like he's got a, you know. I don't know. It's just out of all the X-Men to picture naked, like he's one of the weirdest ones, especially when he becomes a cat. You know, so like I don't know where that extends, and like, yeah.
Someone in the Slack mentioned this, and I think we talked about this on the previous Savage Land episode. But he doesn't like lose his fur or his blueness when he goes to the Savage Land when they've got all of, like the mutant suppression stuff, because that's all science stuff. Like his mutant ability was basically just like I'm super strong and I'm agile.
Yeah. And he was always kind of a pretty boring X-Men before he got the kind of blue fur and stuff too. That's maybe another thing we're picking up on. So like the fact, and even then though, like you'd think that he would lose that when he was in the Savage Land, and just become kind of like a big normal guy. And maybe that happens, you know. But I feel like he still did agility shit.
Yeah, this is definitely ringing a bell. I think we did talk about this, and we were like, I think we settled on the fact like that dude exercises, right? Like he's in the danger room all the time, so he's probably just doing some of this stuff naturally. Unlike Wolverine, who someone pointed out should literally collapse to the ground under the weight of his bones.
Yeah, and immediately die of adamantium poisoning.
Exactly.
Yeah, like because like agility isn't a superpower. Like everyone has even people, you know, myself. Like I'm, you know, big guy, I'm kind of pokey, but like if I knock something off my desk, sometimes I catch it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like agility is a thing you can do. I can stop roars from getting out of my room. You know, like
it's a thing that you can learn. It's not eye beams, right?
Yeah, it's a stat. It's not a power. Like in Dungeons and Dragons terms, it would be something that everyone can do to a degree, as opposed to like a feat. You know,
I mean,
yeah.
Your agility controls how fast you drink water, right? That's how the way that agility works.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me. I wonder if that's part of what some of my kind of coolness on Beast historically has just been that, like, you know, as a function. I'm always worried that someone's gonna make fun of us for this, and we're both the same way, where we both like really like cool power sets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for X-Men and for comics, like we just think that's cool. And we always worry that someone's going to be like, oh, you know, that doesn't matter. It's just the character and stories. And I think for me, it's a function of like when I got into comics, you know, where that was king. Like it was just like, oh, this guy's going to be able. It was just a power fantasy, and it was like, it's real cool that this character is why I liked Gambit so much. I was like, he thought he had a super cool power, you know. And I wonder how much of my like lukewarmness to Beast is because of that. You know,
because he has a really boring power set. Like it's just like it's not even, you know, Rogues isn't particularly flashy, but it's really, really interesting, right? Like even though you don't really get to see her like light something else in a purple glow and throw it and it explodes like Gambit does, like it's still at least interesting. Whereas like Beast is just super smart and he can run and jump real well. That's really about it.
And and one can drive the other too. So when you look at like Rogue, like a lot of the cool character moments and things are driven by her power, right? Like that defines her character.
Absolutely.
Whereas Beast, it was just meant to be like, what if a strong guy was smart? And that's one of the reasons why, and I know I bring up the Grant Morrison X-Men more than anything else, but like all the interesting things they did with his character during that is because they didn't hone in on his powers. They honed in on the science stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had this, like, you know, his mutation made his science thing look different, and they dealt with him dealing with that physical transformation, and it really worked because that was the more interesting thing. It wasn't interesting just that he was agile and strong, you know? So like a really good superhero comic, it does both. Like you have a character with a cool power, or at the very least a power that drives their characterization or drives the plot. And all the other X-Men like do really good jobs with that. Like that's definitely a thing for Cyclops. That's a thing for Rogue. It's a thing for Phoenix, you know, with Dark Phoenix. It's a thing for, you know, not for like Jubilee, but for a lot of the X-Men, it does that. You know, Wolverine is like a victim of the things that happened to him. Like it's, you know, and those things happened because of his power. Like
it's like that for Jubilee when they turn her into a vampire. That's how they had to do that with Jubilee.
they had to turn her into the same way they had to turn Beast into a cat. They had to turn Wolverine into a vampire, or Beast into a vampire to make it work. She's still a vampire. Like a new comic came out, a new Generation X came out. They deal with her like she's just like doesn't show up in a reflection or something. And the people who I listen to, there's a podcast, comics podcast I listen to called House to Astonish, and they talked about it. And they're like, yeah, she's still a vampire. And it's like, oh shit,
not getting rid of that.
Yeah, oh, they haven't cured the Jubilee vampirism yet. Anywho,
Oof.
make Beast a vampire, and then
that would be fun. I could do, you know, because I think that he would be real fun on the science side of it, right? Like he'd like really want to know why all of a sudden women find him attractive.
Yes.
Why am I hot now? a study by Hank McCoy.
These are the tales of
what happens in Savage Land, Savage Heart Part 2, Gary?
Well, Garrick fuses with the island's volcano and the surging planetary force. You know, Garrick. He fuses with the island's volcano and the surging planetary force below it, bringing the island to the edge of destruction. Realizing his mistake, Sauron engages Garrick in battle and eventually manages to absorb Garrick's immense power. Will the X-Men allow Sauron to defeat Garrick and risk losing Storm? Or will Garrick's might be too much for Sauron and the X-Men? That mostly happens.
Sure,
it does beg the question as to why this is an X-Men story, but like... You know.
I know it's not meant to, but bringing the island to the edge is just really funny in the modern context of that word, right?
This volcano's gonna blow, bub.
So we pick up pretty much right where we leave off, with Storm kind of going crazy and summoning rage winds, which I think she actually says, like, I'm summoning rage winds now or something. Like, it's ridiculous. Jubilee, like you mentioned earlier, she's now Jubilee of the Jungle. And it's since Storm is summoning all these rage winds and making the weather go crazy, like it's raining, and the animation effect, Gary, and I know we get a little blue on this podcast, but for all of the world, it looks like every single character is just covered in cum. Like, it just looks so
Everyone
bad.
got gist on. Like, it's all gist all the way down. And, like, it looks really, really bad. Water is always hard for comics people to do, or animation to do, and it happens even like I've never seen like a good cartoon show somebody crying, except unless it's like huge, like exaggerated way. But like, you know, you always see in The Simpsons where they shed a tear and it like looks like this big weird goober of gel pops out of their face. Like, it's real weird. This is the same thing. They're using that kind of effect, but for rain. Everyone looks skeeted upon, and it's not attractive.
It's not great. It's not great.
So Jubilee, when she becomes Jubilee of the Jungle now, she's trying to take down Storm. Like, she thinks she can. This is where that happens, right? Like, she thought, I took down Sauron, I can take down Storm, and Storm just fucking like zaps her and throws like rip. You know, it's just like, you fucking die now. Like, just hits her with wind until she's gonna free fall until she becomes a wet fucking red paste on the ground. Like, if it wasn't somebody catches her.
I'm sure it was Beast. That's his, we didn't talk about this in the segment, but like, that's literally his superpower is catching people, right? Like, that's all he does in these two episodes.
The X-Men makes fog, catches people, like faints when she tries to use her powers.
I want to see that on the back of the trading card, right? Catching people 8 to 8.7. Yeah.
He's a catcher in the rye.
So Garak talks about, like, now that Storm is unleashing all of this elemental energy, he's becoming more powerful, and like, we see this weird shadow thing kind of escape from him, and this is going to be a slow build up to Garak becoming a giant rock person towards the end of the episode. But like, I don't know, like, this is okay. It's still Storm being kind of ridiculous, but you know, whatever. Storm is the X-Men, who have been kind of are hiding out because Storm's powers cause all these dinosaurs to stampede at the X-Men in a really goofy looking scene.
Just to remind you that there are dinosaurs here. Like this is what a fucking like tableau this whole thing is. Like, there are dinosaurs in play still.
Also, like, none of the X-Men seem to be really surprised about, like, they never ever talk about the dinosaurs being like actual fucking dinosaurs.
No, like, contrast with like this opening, you know, the scene in Jurassic Park where the archaeologists first see the dinosaurs.
That's
like,
exactly what I was going to bring.
You should be interested in it. You know, like, out of everyone, like, can appreciate. You guys were just at the fucking Natural History Museum. Like, you beast, you drag these people to go look at dinosaur skeletons, and now you have the ability whenever you want to go see real dinosaurs. Why were you even in that museum? And why are you not impressed?
And then, like, they, at the end of this, obviously the X-Men are okay, but they just fucking jet. Like, we're out of here, see you later. You would think that at least Beast would be like, okay, I'm going to collect some stool samples, I'm going to take some pictures, some skin cells. Like, I'm interested in this. Like, this could change science as we know it.
Perhaps I can have a Trilobite. You know, just like, it just doesn't happen. It is the casualness with which I think the word dinosaur is only said like once or twice too. Like, it's almost like only the audience can see them.
I don't remember if it's here. It might be later on, but there's a scene where there's like a baby brontosaurus gets like pushed out, and like the dad brontosaurus has to like pick him up in his mouth. Oh, say again.
Out of a giant brontosaurus vagina? Is that the scene you're talking about where it gets pushed out?
Yeah, that exact, yeah. Brontosaurus vagina is the name of my other podcast, Gary.
Oh, yeah. It's mostly about Overwatch shipping, though. So,
how did you know?
I just had a guess. I'm right about half the time when I guess that for Jim Greer projects. That's true. Yeah. Boy, what is happening here? They get out of the way of the stampede.
Yeah, so they're hiding in the cave, and they're kind of debating, like, what are we going to do about Storm? We need to talk about Storm, I guess it'd be the joke.
Yeah.
So, like, I think Jubilee says something, and they're like, no, that won't work, and Wolverine's like, I can knock her out, and then they finally settle on letting Sauron feed on her power. So Sauron is currently in human form because he's transformed back to Carlycus, and he convinces them that no, it's fine. I know I'm an addict, and I just want a little hit, and I'll be okay, and we'll be fine. And the X-Men believe him, and
Wolverine set up Wolverine's the voice of reason as always, and Wolverine's like, no way. But then
Yeah.
Kazar advocates for him. He's like, you don't know him like I do. He'll be fine. And we don't have a choice is the idea. However, it's like they forgot that they have somebody on their team who sucks powers.
Well, because it's
like,
not here, but I'm trying to remember why they didn't let, because they talk about it. They actually said, Rogue's like, I can go drain her powers. And like, no, but then you'll be crazy or something.
Yeah, like, why would you drain her, like, like her... I mean, I guess she does absorb people's mind, but it just seems weird that she would automatically absorb her temperament like that. And then, like, why... When Sauron absorbs her powers, like, nothing happens like that with Sauron. It's real silly. It's convoluted. Like, it feels like
he's
Rogue
not,
shouldn't have been on this mission.
He's not absorbing her powers like Rogue is, right? Like, if you want to get to the technical stuff, he's just absorbing her energy, maybe. So when Rogue does it, maybe she gets like the emotions, the mind, the memories, and everything. So maybe she would go crazy. Versus Sauron just literally sucking energy out of you. So
yeah, it's a power versus energy thing.
That's probably more thought than the fucking writers put into that, Gary.
Yeah,
they were just like, whatever, we want Sauron to do it, so he can turn back into Sauron.
Yeah, because he has to for the climax of this, which is incredible. So they distract Storm by catapulting flaming rocks at her. Like, it's like, be careful, we don't want to kill her. And it's like, oh shit, like a gigantic boulder. While Rogue Sauron fly combo sneaks up behind her and absorbs her. Absorbs some of Storm's powers, and they're like, okay, Carl, let go. And he's like, never, and of course turns into Sauron because of, like,
surprise.
No other possibility. Of course he did.
Yeah, so, I don't like. They set this whole thing up like he's not, and then immediately he does. So like, it's just always funny to me.
Yeah. So this is where Rogue does try to use her powers on Sauron to try to drain him, and nobody says like, "Oh, that's just going to turn you into a maniac dinosaur," or anything like that. And this is really incredible because it turns her into a dinosaur.
Yeah. It literally turns her into a dinosaur in the most horrifying way possible. Like, this would have to damage your face somehow, right? Like, your face is like, there's her bones.
Unsetting and setting and unsetting. Like, just imagine the sound, like the crackling of like new bones growing, old bones slawing away. Like,
this would be in that
it's really horrific.
Warren Ellis comic you were talking about, right? Like the
in Ruins. Yeah. Every time Rogue absorbs the powers of like beasts, like her bone structure just mashes into new shapes, to be extra agile and stuff. It's real gross. So she collapses though because their powers have canceled each other out, which like with no further explanation. Like, okay, absorbings cancel each other out.
Yeah, which whatever, who cares? But it just so now we see like this shadow that's Garrock that sprung out of his like stone face or whatever. It's like roaming across the countryside and turning this vegetation into like these crystals, which is kind of spooky and scary. I like that that they've calmed down Rogue, right? So Storm. So once Sauron absorbs her power, she collapses. Guess what? Beast catches her, and they basically give her a nap. They let her go to sleep for a little while, but she wakes up and she's still fucking crazy. So they have to like restrain her. And this is what I mentioned earlier with Beast, like has a robot arm to come out of his backpack to hand him this Sharpie syringe,
just to jam into her arm to calm her down. When she wakes up, she destroys the statues that the natives are worshiping. Like when she first wakes up. Because she knows somehow instinctively that Garrick is like against the land because she's got, in addition to controlling the weather, she has a weird touch with it. Yeah. And I don't, is this before or after she starts, this is before she starts, Beast thinks she's causing an earthquake, right? That happens later.
This happens later. Yeah. Cause,
I fucking hate that line. Like fucking Beast. So,
that's a product at the end, I think.
Okay. So they put Storm to sleep. Meanwhile, Sauron lands next to Zaladin and is like, gather my sleeves. And she just goes, no. And it's real like, no pomp to it at all. That's really great.
Yeah, it's really funny. I like how Garrock like reaches up with some crystal vines or whatever and just like holds him in place. And, like he's just out of the picture for the next 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah. Sauron, and we learn about Garrock, his backstory, which is this ancient being. Here, it's pretty boring.
it's pretty boring, but it's really funny because he's this ancient being who apparently was just down in the Savage Land just fucking shit up. Like, that was his only thing. Like, he was just down there blowing some shit up. And then another dude shows up and, like, traps him in a rock and then leaves. The guy isn't named. He is not a recognizable character that I can tell. And he just, like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
I just keep going back to, like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, I don't know why. It feels like he's on loan from another, like, he'd be like an Avengers villain that just like showed up here or something like that, but he's an X-Men villain. Garrick shows up. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So his whole goal is to, like, there's this system of in this volcano, which is like has like some sort of connection to this energy source underneath the Savage Land, which is what keeps it like warm and all savage like. But like the way that the cartoon shows it, it's all like technological. Like it's like it's like machines and shit down there. So I don't really remember my history of the Savage Land.
Yeah.
Do what?
Probably Magneto built it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but this is like, it was here like thousands of years ago in Garrock's time.
Mm. Yeah.
Literally,
I don't know.
Does not matter.
I don't understand why. I have no idea why.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the chronology gets a little confusing to me at this point. So we find out about his whole plot. This is why he got Storm to show up here. So he did his very, very complicated plot. The land starts kind of changing into more of these crystals as Garrick gains power. And he makes a gigantic face in the mountain, makes like Mount Garrickmore out on the side, the first president of the Savage Land.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And this is where the ground starts shaking. And Beast says, has Storm added earthquakes to her meteorological repertoire? And earthquakes aren't meteorology
No.
or weather or anything, dipshit.
No.
Like you can't be like, it's like one of the things that when we talked about like this many times with Beast, but it's like one of the reasons why his characterization feels so shitty is that he's not smarter than anyone else on the team. He just uses bigger words. You know, like I know that.
It's the
Jubilee
Jackson
has to
Pollock
know
problem.
that. Yeah. Exactly. Like, I think I can't tell his drop cloths from his paintings. It's like, no. Anybody who knows art does and can tell the difference between that. Like you're just parroting the words, but you have no conception of their meaning. It's like he learned English phonetically, but didn't actually learn the meanings of anything. Like he just like learned it from a phrase book, you know? So he just has these little phrases he pops in. And like, this is one of them where I'm like, fucking Jubilee probably had 8th grade earth science. Like she knows that that's not a thing. You know, why don't you? Genius. Doesn't seem so smart to me.
And he's definitely a teacher, right? Like, are they?
Yeah.
Is he technically a teacher in this? I don't really remember if they ever did. I think they're just a team. But yeah, like ostensibly,
no students.
Xavier is a school, which we never really talk about.
Yeah, he's just Jubilee's teacher. Like just like once a day, like it's just the two of them in a room and her like correcting him on and telling what these words mean. It's probably like a very touching thing where like secretly she's the teacher. And he's the student, but they like, he makes a big show and then like, she's going to teach him, that words have meaning and like what some of these common misconceptions actually mean and stuff. So I bet you it's actually very cute. Like I was going to say Good Will Hunting, but that's not right. So.
Yeah. This is kind of like, I'm kind of with you where the chronology gets a little messy right here. Like it's basically just like an extended scene of Storm, like shooting and shouting powers at Garrick the Rock, who is slowly but steadily getting stronger with this elemental energy, and she doesn't quite realize that. Rogue flies up to try to stop her, and in the process, free Sauron. So good job at that, Rogue.
Which they end up needing to.
Yeah,
like they have
that ends
to.
up being
like
a good thing.
It's sloppy. Yeah. So.
Once Sauron's free, he decides he can go over to the volcano and absorb Garrock's power while he's absorbing while Garrock is absorbing the power from the volcano. So it's kind of like a, buy one, get one power source absorption party or whatever. But it's too much and it's like he can't handle it and they both just get super big because that's what happens when you absorb a lot of volcano energy, I guess.
And so they fight as like two big kaijus. Like more or less, like the two
it's
them,
giant
like
Rockman versus Lizard Lizard Bird.
Giant Surrock. While the X-Men do nothing, the X-Men just hang out and watch. Like,
which in all fairness, is what you would do too, right? Like, I wouldn't want to be around. I would try to I'd be going back to the plane at this point. Like, I got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, this is no longer our story. The big explosion happens as there are two forces, which a spacecraft just happens to be like, they show it from space, and they have the establishing, shot of somebody in space seeing it, which is very funny to me whenever that happens. Like, oh, if this didn't happen, if an astronaut didn't see it, it didn't happen. So everyone wakes up. Storm is found under some rocks, which is like personal held her, and they leave.
That's it. They're like, we need to get her to the
I'm not going to
med
turn into Sauron anymore. It's like, well, there's no more mutants here. He's like, yeah, I'm definitely not going to take a jet out and turn into Sauron. You guys can trust me for some reason. And they go, yep. And then they go. And this scene in which the X-Men, like the whole story where the X-Men were merely tools to be utilized for the struggles between a lizard and a rock, has now come to an end.
Which, a story about a lizard and a rock is like one of Gambit's sexual lessons, right? Keep your lizards away from rocks, boys and girls.
Now that lizard be looking at that rock and say, it look pretty good, no? That rock lifts a tail, and then they get to business. But sir, it's a rock. But then they keep going. He can't stop. It just feels so good. First he charged a card.
This episode feels like it just ends, right? Like
it
barely feels like there's any resolution. They just say like, oh, we need to put Storm needs medical attention, so we're going to get her to the jet and then fly home. And then Khazar or whatever, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I can't pronounce anything today, Gary. I don't know what's going on with
Khazar, I think.
Khazar. Walks over to Sauron, who is now Karlikos, and is like, "Don't worry, friend. There's no more mutant energy here. You'll never turn into Sauron again." And I'm like, "Well, how the fuck was he doing it before? What?"
Yeah, it's pretty dumb, and it's taking. It's not like the X-Men aren't gonna. For some reason, mutants in general have a vested interest in the Savage Land. Like, they keep coming back whether we care about it or not.
And it doesn't even feel like a top-down, like, it's not like Professor Xavier is like, we really need to worry about this Savage Land. Like, it could potentially be used by our villains to blah, blah, blah. Like, it's nothing like it's not a directive or anything. They just go there every once in a while.
Yeah.
Like, okay. It's our monthly check-in.
It's dumb. But, again, these episodes are bonkers enough to where I can't help but like them. Like, just it ends with a gigantic rock fighting a gigantic lizard for some reason, and Jubilee fights right around a pterodactyl dressed up as Fred Flintstone, and like enough weird things happen that I am into it. I can't help it,
I'm the type of dude that sees a giant lizard man and a giant rock man fighting with each other, and I really enjoy it. Like, I'm just that dude, so like it works for me. Like the context is almost meaningless. Like, it's just good, right? It's just fun stuff at some point.
Yeah,
it is very ridiculous.
It's like I feel like it kind of inoculates us against what would have been like either a Savage Land episode, which would have been shitty, or a Storm highlight episode, which would have been shitty. Like it's kind of weirdly becomes more than the sum of its parts, because it sounds like two of my least favorite things about this cartoon put together.
Mm-hmm. It is exactly that, with a healthy dose of that other thing that you don't like sprinkled throughout in the form of beast.
Yeah, exactly. It's all the worst things about X-Men put together, but then they take it and just make it weird enough that like I'm into it.
Yeah, and weird is always good, right? Like I'll take a weird story that doesn't quite hit versus like a by the numbers story that is quote unquote good or whatever. So this
very much so.
It's still very ridiculous, and like I watched the first episode twice because we had a pretty big delay between the first time I watched it and when we were going to record, so I wanted to refresh my memory. And
our schedule is in shambles.
Our schedule is fucking terrible right now. Yeah. I have got to stop recording to give up Skeleton. I do it all the time. It's just getting in the way of my daily life. I've got 3 lined up for tonight. It's ridiculous.
Oh my God.
It's not true.
Pull back.
But it's just like watching it the second time. It's just like it doesn't feel like an X. Nothing happens. Like really, it's a Storm thing, right? Like it's Storm, but it's not really an X-Man story. Like it's just Storm getting a little out of control, which as we've talked about in the episode, we've already handled with Jean Grey. Like the next episode of this podcast is going to be covering the Dark Phoenix saga. We're going to get that. So why did they just want to draw some dinosaurs? Were they jealous of all the other cartoons that got to draw dinosaurs?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. It's I don't know.
No, Gary, I need a fucking answer. Tell me. I'm putting you up for this. This is your fault. This podcast was your idea, not really.
I can't say. I can say that I'm excited to move on from this and get back into Dark Phoenix Saga.
Yeah, this should be super good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're covering that in 2 episodes. 2 episodes there, 2 episodes each, because the Dark Phoenix Saga is 4 episodes rather than 5.
Yep.
And there's no prequel to it or anything like that either, so we don't have to deal with Lady Deathstrike in the shit shower in the middle of the Morlocks piss zone. You know.
Oh God. Isn't Lady Deathstrike coming back this season too? Like we're going to deal more with
and Weapon X lies and
Marigo.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that, but I'll deal with it, I suppose.
Gary, pretend I'm a guy that isn't on this podcast, but I really enjoy this podcast and I really want to support it. What is the best way for a guy like me to do that?
We should send an email to Gary Butterfield with the subject line, "Can I replace Jeremy Greer?" Hey.
Auditions are open.
No, you should. The best thing you can do to support the whole network is support us on Patreon. You go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. You can see all the rewards and stuff you get. You can kind of see what you get in exchange for helping us and kind of where we're at. And we're making some changes to the Patreon. They should be dropping right around when this episode comes out, which is next Saturday, I believe. Mm-hmm. And one of those is a stretch goal that is very specific to this show that is so monumentally stupid. And I really want to do it. And I think that people will like it if they like this show. And it is, it's the worst. So if you want to see this very, very dumb idea take form, which you should be able to see by the time I just don't want to say it on air in case it's not up.
Yeah, in case it's not up yet. Yeah. So.
But I think that
I'll probably,
you will want to see that.
You've probably, depending on the way things shake out, if it's actually public or not, by the time this airs, I'll talk about it at the very beginning when I do the intro.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that's the best way you can do it, and even a little bit of money helps. So, like, you can come into our Slack channel. Our Slack channel is such a tremendous value and is becoming a big community that is, we're trying to make sure it stays positive and everything. So we've actually raised, the ask for that. If you're already in the Slack channel, you're grandfathered in. Otherwise, we've moved that up to $5 a month, which is still a steal for, I think, one of the best and most supportive communities online. So
it is ridiculous.
It's a hobby. Yeah. Multiple people have told me that it replaces social networking for them, almost writ large. So
it definitely replaces Facebook, and it's directly responsible for me not reading something awful anymore. I have no need for that anymore. So
yeah, we've poached a lot of people from something awful. So low tax are coming for you.
Yeah, Richard.
Yeah. So, but it is a good it's a good value. It's a very good place, and there's a bunch of other stuff you can do, and you can also just support the show because you like it.
Absolutely. The other thing would be iTunes reviews help.
Oh yeah,
and make me feel pretty good about myself, and at the same time, which is always nice. So, but more importantly, it bumps us up on iTunes searches, algorithms, and all that stuff. So, people looking for the show will find it if you leave a bunch of reviews for it, which is cool.
Yeah, and we don't do this that often. But Jeremy, why don't you tell people who are listening to this what other podcasts you do? Because you're on several different other podcasts.
I'm on several different ones. So if you like this and you also are a fan of hunks hunting down supernatural creatures, you should listen to Monster of the Week. Me and my buddy Chris are covering the entire series of Supernatural. And Gary, if you think we have a lot of work for us with the X-Men, there's 13. It just got renewed for season 13, and it's 22 episodes per season.
Woohoo.
So 260 something episodes left of that not the podcast of the show to cover, but it's fun. It's a real goofy take. We treat it kind of seriously and also rip on it all the time. So it's a lot of fun. Monsteroftheweek.cool is the URL for that because the internet is the dumbest place in the world now. So.
Yeah.
What's your favorite podcast that you're on, Gary? Let me put you on this. No, I'm kidding.
What else is and you're also Don't Give Up Skeleton, which you mentioned.
Yeah, as well. And Dark Insight. So, but you can just hit my Twitter up for that at JG Greer, and you can find all of the links to that you might want to find.
Yeah, just check it out. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably good. So until next time, good night, everybody.
Good night. 20 episodes. Yet to come.
put it in the vernacular, alley-oop.
What's with the gray dirt?